With just 6 days to go until Election Day, leaders took their campaigns to outer suburbia, holding rousing rallies. The claws were out early as Peter Dutton promised to crack down on crime, while the PM pledged millions for round-the-clock healthcare.
A wave of blue in a traditionally red electorate. Peter Dutton rallies the Liberal Party faithful in the Labor-held Western Melbourne seat of Hawke. He promises a crime crackdown and action to ease the cost of living.
Is anyone feeling that you're better off today than you were 3 years ago? Does anybody believe that our country is better off today than we were 3 years ago? Are we safer as a community today?
Attacking rival Anthony Albanese.
If I fall off the stage, I won't lie about it. All right?
And comparing him to an on-the-nose state premier.
Are there any supporters here of Jacinta Allen? No.
Labor staging a rival rally in the other city rich with marginal electorates, Sydney.
Wow, what a warm welcome. Thank you.
350 party supporters and many from the Prime Minister's front bench packing Parramatta Town Hall.
There's only one certainty with Peter Dutton. He cuts, you pay.
Yet again, Medicare his centrepiece, a new plan to spend $200 million creating a national phone-a-doctor service, 1-800-Medicare.
A 24/7 health advice line and after-hours GP telehealth service backed by Medicare.
Today's rallies are a final rev-up before a 6-day dash to this election's judgment day. For Anthony Albanese, the enemy is overconfidence. For Peter Dutton, it's a 6-day mountain climb. Insisting he can still do it, the Liberal leader plans to visit 28 electorates in a frenetic final week. Liberals hope he can defy bad poll numbers and take back at least some party heartland electorates lost to Teal candidates, like Sydney's McKellar, where he campaigned with his old boss.
Thank you very much. Thank you. You're welcome.
Labor looking for a mistake-free finish to an election now widely seen as theirs to lose. Tim Lester, 7 News.
Okay, that'll do. Can everyone hear me? We're just waiting for the live stream to begin for the debate. It looks like it's a bit late, but let's just make sure that everyone can hear me, please. And yes, this is the, or is it, I'm here for the shit show. Is this the right place? This is definitely the right place for the final shit show. So welcome in everyone. 4 debates. This is the final one for the campaign. If you guys can give this a share, and we'll be on shortly.
Political spin. This is the debate for every Australian.
Here we are.
The issues in this election should be presented for you.
This was 1958.
We are confident that we can go on transforming this country.
Head-to-head in the first TV debate.
But this government and its representatives should not be allowed to continue in office.
Channel 7 pioneered what Australians deserved. To see leaders win them over for their spot in history.
This is a fabulous Australia.
Some things haven't changed in the lucky country. A want for an affordable, better life. A fair go for all. And a seat at the global table. 31 Prime Ministers have stood for Australia. Tonight, the modern day clash to decide the next. Beaming into lounge rooms across the country. Albanese.
Lulu with no Salulu.
Or Dutton.
The weakest, most limperest leader.
Head-to-head to win your vote in this, the final showdown. Live from 7's Election Central.
Good evening. Welcome to the final showdown. Tonight, the candidates to be Australia's Prime Minister head to head. This is their moment to lock in your support. Our political editor, Mark Riley, will grill them on 6 key topics, then some rapid-fire hot takes. From the price of putting food on the table to keeping your lights on at home, how much money the government takes from your paycheck at the end of the working week, and the future of welcome to country ceremonies. Each leader will give a 1-minute opening pitch. We'll have a countdown clock to keep them on time. Then the grilling begins. Each can have 1 minute to respond to questions, then 4 minutes debating each other. We've warned them, this is personal. We are live across Australia into your lounge room. It's a place for honesty, not spin. This isn't Parliament. We aren't interested in Canberra bubble waffle and numbers that just don't make sense. This is Anthony Albanese or Peter Dutton's chance to be the leader the nation needs. And tonight we can reveal the 7 News election needle has moved slightly back towards toss-up, though still favouring the Prime Minister. Insiders tell us the Teal vote is actually softening. That's good news for the Liberals in inner city seats, crucial to forming government. Watching along with you at home, 60 undecided voters chosen by a third-party independent of 7 News. The debate jurors will watch and react to the leader's every word. Then they will decide the winner in a 7 News Spotlight special. So it's a big 2 hours coming up, but now let's begin. Here is your moderator this evening, 7 News political editor, Mark Riley.
Thanks, Nat. Gentlemen, thank you both for being here tonight. We appreciate it. It's been a gruelling 4 weeks on the campaign, 6 days to go. This time next week, one of you will be the Prime Minister of the country. 2 million people have already voted, another 18 million before 6 p.m. on Saturday. This is your final chance to connect with those voters, and my job is to allow you to do that. So let's get to it. Mr. Dutton, you've won the coin toss and you have elected to speak first with your opening statement. 1 minute, please.
Well, Mark, thank you very much. And Prime Minister, thank you for being here tonight. This election is all about who can best manage the Australian economy. And if we can manage the economy well, it means that we can bring inflation down. It means that we can help families with the cost of living crisis that this government's created. We live in the best country in the world, but we do know that many families are doing it tough. And as we've moved around the country, we've spoken to families literally in tears. They can't afford to put food on the table. They've stopped the registration renewal on their motor vehicle or on their house. They have had a tough 3 years under this government. And there are very few, if any, Australians that I've met over the course of the last 3 years who can say that they are better off under this Prime Minister's watch. We need to make sure that our country can be kept safe, and we need strong leadership in a very uncertain world to make sure that we can keep our country safe. And I believe very strongly that at this election, Australians will vote for change. There is a better way to manage our economy and to manage our national security, and that's exactly what I have on offer at this election.
Thanks, Mr. Dutton. Mr. Albanese, your opening statement, please.
Well, thanks, Mark, and thanks, Peter. Australians have a real choice this Saturday to continue building Australia's future or go back to the past. Labor has a real plan for cost of living support today, whilst building with investment for tomorrow. Tax cuts for every Australian taxpayer, strengthening Medicare, including through our 1800 Medicare line, making more things. Here in Australia, 20% cut in student debt and a 5% deposit for first homeowners. We know that we live in very uncertain times, and that's why we need certainty. And during this campaign, we have put forward clear, decisive policies. The opposition have chopped and changed. Australians deserve certainty. What we will deliver is just that. We will trust in our people. We will value our Australian values, and we'll build Australia's future.
Thanks very much, gentlemen. You've both mentioned the magic phrase in your opening statements, the cost of living. It is the issue that is galvanising the nation at this election. So our first question tonight is on that issue. Australian families, we know, are doing it tough. They're under the pump. Our viewers constantly tell us that they're getting smashed at the supermarkets every week. What will you do from Sunday to make their lives easier? Mr. Albanese, you first.
Well, we completely understand how tough it is for people out there. That's why we've already acted on cost of living, but we know there is more to do. That's why we'll deliver an increased tax cut, not just one, but 2 tax cuts in the next term. That's why we'll continue to support real wage growth. Real wages have grown 5 quarters in a row. We know that that is important as well. But we've also got the plans for cheaper medicines, $25, we've brought the costs down. Energy bill relief, the cheaper childcare policy that has benefited families by $2,700. We will continue to address those cost of living measures while getting inflation down. Inflation had a 6 in front of it when we were elected. It's now at 2.4. Interest rates started to rise before we were elected. Now they've started to fall, and we know the impact that that has on the Australian people.
Mr Dutton, what will you offer to families in the way of cost of living relief from Sunday?
Well, Mark, we want to provide immediate relief to Australian families, and that's through a cut in the petrol tax by 25 cents a litre for petrol and diesel. And that means for families, it means for pensioners and for university students, for tradies, right across the economy, downward pressure on a very important cost that people have to face up to each week. It will save about $14 every time you fill up your tank. That's the immediate assistance. Secondly, $1,200 back by way of a tax rebate. That will help people deal with Labor's cost of living crisis. But the Prime Minister promises a Band-Aid on a bullet wound. The damage that's been done over the last 3 years is significant. We've had the biggest drop in living standards compared to any other developed country in the world. Interest rates started to drop in other countries before they dropped here, and they've only dropped by 0.25 of 1% after having risen on 12 occasions. So we provide that immediate relief, and then our longer-term plan is to fix up the energy crisis, because that's what's driven up the cost of food by 30%. It's driven up the cost of everything across the economy, and that has to be the real, I think, when you think about it, and it is emotional when you think about what families are going through, but that long-term relief is actually going to turn around Labor's very bad position.
All right, I've been lenient. Mr Dutton, Mr Albanese, the question was about families getting smashed at the supermarket. We heard all your policies and we've heard them, and now they're out there on the table. What is going to help families at the supermarket from Sunday?
What's going to help is a mandated code of conduct that we brought into supermarkets. Previously, the former government just had a voluntary code that was abused. People know that when they go to the supermarket and they see the price of a good reduced or put up by $1 and then reduced by 50 cents, and they pretend that that's a price cut, people know that supermarkets are just having a lend.
So what will you do about it?
Well, that's why we've got the code of conduct with real penalties in there as well as stopping price gouging. But if I can take up Peter's points briefly, the measures that Peter is putting forward are all temporary. They disappear in a year's time. The difference between that and what we're putting forward is that ours are permanent. Permanent tax cuts. Putting that $1,000 instant tax deduction will make a difference permanently. The real wage increases that have been delivered, that Peter's industrial relations policy would undermine, taking away same job, same pay. They want to get rid of taking away work from home. We know that that's the case. Okay. So we need permanent change that makes a real difference to the living standards of Australia.
All right, but some of the change you're proposing isn't permanent either. The household energy rebate will disappear in 6 months. Mr Dutton, when that was introduced, you first called it a Ponzi scheme because it's taxpayers subsidising taxpayers. You now support the extension for 6 months. You did that just before the election. Your fuel excise cut that you talked about is taxpayers supporting taxpayers. It's the same thing, isn't it? I mean, it's a taxpayer-funded shopper docket.
We'll make a couple of points. I mean, firstly, the Prime Minister looked the Australian people in the eye before the last election, and on 97 occasions said that power prices would come down by $275.
We're talking about petrol.
They've gone up by $1,300. Now, what we've said, as we said over the course of COVID, and if you look at the way in which the Liberal Party, the coalition, always manages money and the economy more efficiently than Labor, what we did during COVID was say, OK, we're going to introduce JobKeeper, job seeker changes. We help businesses survive and stay open. We help people keep their jobs.
Petrol.
Well, the point I make, though, Mark, is that when we made those changes and when we implemented those plans during the course of COVID, those payments aren't still being made today. They were there to address the needs in the economy at the time. And our argument is that, yes, it'll take us time to clean up Labor's mess, but in the interim, that immediate support, that 25 cent a litre cut in petrol, that can be provided to help people with the bills that they're facing now, and also the $1,200. Now, our policy in relation to energy is to bring Australian gas back into the market so that we can increase supply. It brings the cost of gas down by 24%, which actually brings down the cost of groceries and construction costs,
We will get on to energy, I promise you.
Yeah.
Mr Albanese, $6 billion on this petrol excise cut. Is that money well spent? Won't people like cheaper petrol?
Let's be very clear. I mean, that is something that Scott Morrison did before the 2022 election, and then it disappeared. It's the same policy being put forward
Your
here.
Your household rebate disappears before it does.
But their income tax cuts that we have put legislated, they're going to actually increase the income taxes of all 14 million Australians, as well as oppose other measures such as the student debt cut of 20%, the free TAFE, that's made a difference as well, cheaper childcare they've been critical of. Every single one of the cost of living measures has been opposed by the coalition, and we know that people are doing it tough. But we also know this, and your viewers know, that we're living through the biggest inflation global issue since the 1980s and the biggest energy crisis since the 1970s. Now, that's something we've had to deal with. We've dealt with it in a mature way, getting that inflation down whilst providing cost of living relief, because we know that people are doing it tough.
Okay, well, let's move on. Our second question tonight is on housing, a big issue. Mr Albanese, you recently bought a $4.3 million beachside house. Mr Dutton, we know that you've had $30 million in properties over your life. I think we can both all agree that housing's not an issue for you, but for a lot of Australians it really is. What does the Australian dream look like today for an average Australian in the property market, Mr Dutton?
Well, Mark, it looks like a nightmare, and it's a nightmare because rents have gone up by almost 20%. And this Prime Minister has brought in 1 million people over the course of the last 2 years through the migration program. That is a 70% increase on any 2-year period in our country's history. So when you bring 1 million people in, they want a house for their kids and their family, fair enough. But what we've seen is Australians being displaced from home ownership, and our young Australians now saving harder than ever, paying more rent than ever, they're locked out of the market. So what we've said is that we want to work with councils to bring 500,000 blocks of land online through a $5 billion scheme. For first home buyers, a $650,000 mortgage or up to that amount. You can deduct the interest off your taxable income, which will give you about $1,000 a month, which will help you with your application to the bank, but also it will help you meet the monthly repayments. We're going to put a 2-year ban in place for foreigners from competing against young Australians in the housing market, and we're going to cut migration by 25%.
And we will talk about migration, Mr Dutton. So, Mr Albanese, what does the Australian dream look like to you for average Australians?
Well, Australians know that this is an issue for them because it has got tougher to buy your own home, but they know it hasn't happened over the last couple of years. We've had a decade or even more of neglect. And the question isn't, do you identify a problem? It's, can you work towards a solution? And that's what my government has done. A 5% deposit for first home buyers will make an enormous difference, so that instead of never getting to that 20% figure, always paying off someone else's mortgage, people will be able to get into their first home and pay off their own mortgage. But the key as well is supply. And that's why our measures, whether it be increased private rentals through our incentives for build-to-rent programs, our first home buyers scheme, or whether it be the increased support for social housing, we are concentrating on supply, not just demand, because we know that's the key going forward.
Mr Dutton, you mentioned migration in there about housing, and I know I've heard you say many times on the campaign trail thus far that the number of people coming into Australia is putting pressure on the real estate market or the property market. Don't we need skilled migrants? Aren't we screaming out for skilled migrants to build the sort of houses you're talking about?
Well, Mark, of course we do. And we've been, as a country, the net beneficiary of a great migration program. But it needs to be done in a balanced and measured way. This government hasn't had control of our borders. They've released people from immigration detention who have gone on to commit very serious crimes against Australians. Every aspect of the migration program has been mismanaged by this government. And if you bring in 1 million people over 2 years, over a 5-year period, it'll be about 2 million people, a population bigger than the size of Adelaide. and yet money's been pulled out of infrastructure. The government's signature housing policy hasn't built one home. And the fact is that young Australians know this. Young Australians are putting off having children under this government because they can't afford a mortgage and a family at the same time.
Right.
And for many families otherwise, parents and grandparents, they're staying in the workforce for longer because they're either having to help their kids with a deposit or to make the repayments.
Yeah,
and
okay.
that's the crisis that the Prime Minister's created. And that's why we have to cut migration,
All right.
to focus on the skilled migration, yes, but to make sure that Australians can get into housing.
Mr Albanese?
Well, the truth is that the migration rates have fallen by 31% in the last year. And after COVID, of course, there was going to be more people coming in short term. The government is addressing that by lowering migration at the same time as we're building housing. There have been 400,000 homes completed since we came to office. Our Housing Australia Future Fund...
Not one, he said, under your
Our Housing Australia Future Fund, which they held up together, the Coalition and the Greens, that's now in operation, 28,000 homes, either under construction...
But not one completed.
Either under construction or in planning. Well, one of the schemes, the Help to Buy scheme, was passed in the Parliament last December. Now, you're having a lend to oppose all of those measures and then say, why haven't the homes been built? The former government didn't even have a housing minister for half the time they were in office and invested a total of $5 billion. We've got a $43 billion Homes for Australia plan. We've lifted rental assistance by 45%, but we've done something else as well. Okay. We are training more tradies to work on those homes by giving a $10,000 apprenticeship support program to encourage young people and people retraining to go into construction.
Okay. Mr Albanese, you've said, I think, a few times in this campaign, but I want you to say tonight, categorically, negative gearing is off the table.
Yeah, it's off the table, and the evidence is that we were elected in 2022. The coalition ran this campaign then. We haven't done it because of good policy.
It was recommended in 2016, 2019 by the Labor Party. The Treasury's done work on it, we know that.
It was, and we moved on because the key is supply, and that measure will not boost supply. So that is what we have been concentrating on. And Labor is the party of aspiration. We want people to get ahead. We want people to have access to their own home, and the key to that is supply.
So negative gearing never ever, do you believe it?
No, I don't. The Prime Minister said before the last election that there'd be no changes to superannuation, and the Prime Minister's introduced a tax which taxes an unrealised capital gain. So just to put that into, sort of basic terms, if you've got shares and the shares go up in value, or if you've got a house and the house goes up in value, this government is going to tax you on that gain before you actually sell the shares or sell the house.
Yeah, we know that's caught up in the Parliament. That's not
no,
law.
but that's the government's policy. They mentioned nothing of it before the election.
Indeed. Okay, let's go to tax cuts. Mr Albanese, you're promising $5 a week tax cut in 15 months' time. Not enough for a coffee. What difference is that going to make?
Well, it's a top-up of our tax cuts. We had the guts to make a tough decision, but it was done for the right reasons. I went along to the National Press Club, fronted up, and said that what we are going to do is to change our policy because we understood that people were doing it tough. You can't just say people are doing it tough, but I won't do anything about it. So what we did was we changed that to take money, $4,500 off our tax cuts, to make sure that those viewers at home on that first marginal tax rate got a tax cut. They wouldn't have got a single dollar. That is why it's important, and we'll add to it by targeting deliberately that first rate, taking it from 16 down to 15 and down to 14, which will put $2,500 into people's pockets at the same time, of course, as wages are increasing. Okay. And we're also delivering $1,000 instant tax deduction, which will make a difference, particularly for low and middle income earners.
Thanks, Mr Albanese. Mr Dutton, part of the rationale for this $5 a week and then $10 a week tax cut is to target what we call bracket creep. So your wage goes up through inflation, you pay higher tax. That's part of that. You say you have an aspiration to change the tax, to index the tax rates to alleviate the problem with bracket creep. Yet at the same time, you're going to this election, as the Prime Minister just pointed out, promising the people you will repeal a tax cut. I don't know of any leader who's ever done that. Is that crazy brave or just crazy?
Well, Mark, what we've said is that you can have the Labor option, which is 70 cents a day in 15 months' time, as you point out, or you can have a 25 cent a litre cut to fuel excise now. So $14 per tank per week. That's about $1,500 a year, $1,200 back for each taxpayer in an average income household, so $2,400. You equate that compared to the 70 cents a day, people are better off. So people can pay income tax, they can pay excise tax. There are other taxes that they pay. We're reducing that overall tax burden on the family, but we're providing that as an interim solution until we can fix up Labor's mess. The biggest issue at the moment is the fact, and the Reserve Bank Governor's pointed out this, that the homegrown inflation under this government, the spending, the massive spending, has led to inflation staying higher for longer. And under this government, if they're re-elected with the Greens, more spending will mean higher interest rates, and that will be devastating for homeowners and right across the economy.
We've heard that about the Reserve Bank Governor, and the Prime Minister has many times accused you of verballing her. She did make some observations about homegrown inflation, but I don't think it was as broad as that. Mr Albanese, Mr Dutton saying that at some time in the future he will cut tax.
Well, he's going to increase it. He's going to this election campaign saying that he will increase the income tax of all 14 million Australians, and the changes that he's spoken about will disappear in 12 months' time. That is the difference. They don't have structural changes going through, such as the ones that we've implemented, that last, whether it's cheaper medicines, whether it be the income tax cuts, the real wage increases. I mean, they have said they'll get rid of measures like same job, same pay that have...
We're talking about tax. We're talking about tax.
But that is just... I mean, that is not true, Prime Minister. Honestly, this whole campaign, it's hard to believe anything you say. And this is the case, obviously, with the $275. You've never mentioned it again. The promises that you've made in relation to migration, the numbers blow out every quarter. You've made promises in relation to housing. You haven't delivered any housing. You have created an economic mess in our country. And our job as a Liberal government, as was the case for John Howard, is to clean up a Labor mess. And that's what we will do through the interim measures. But how we bring down prices and inflation is to reduce some of the economy-wide impact of your energy policy. And that is how we can bring down the cost of groceries. We have a plan before the Australian people, which I think provides a solution to your problems, the creation of which you should be ashamed of, frankly, over the last 3 years.
All right, you should be ashamed and you're a liar.
Well, Peter can attack me, but I tell you what I won't let him do. I won't let him attack the wages of working people. I won't let him attack the changes that we've put in place for cheaper childcare. I won't let him abandon free TAFE so that people can get an opportunity in life. I won't let him get away with this nonsense about economic management. We inherited a deficit of $78 billion. We turned that into a $22 billion surplus. We delivered another surplus, and we halved the deficit this year. Inflation is now 2.4% in the bottom half of the Reserve Bank band. It was 6 and rising when we came to office. We have worked hard. The Australian people have worked hard in order to get that under control, and they deserve better than this pretense that everything was hunky-dory in 2022.
All right, Mark, if that's the case, if what the Prime Minister has just said is true, if real wages have gone up and people are so much better off, real wages have gone up by 10%, prices of groceries have gone up by 30%, real wages have gone up.
Where's that number from, the 30%? Where's that number from?
The 30% increase in grocery prices is what's come through over the last 3 years. The cost of electricity is up by 32%. The cost of gas is up by 34%. Core inflation in this country is twice that of our G7 nations. You can't stand here telling people that they're much better off after 3 years. If you had a good story to tell, Prime Minister, you wouldn't be running a scare campaign. You'd be talking about your so-called achievements of the last 3 years. Families are being smashed under your government. And if you're re-elected, the prices will keep going up.
The difference between us in this election campaign is that you have identified a range of issues, but you have no solutions, and you pretend that they've arisen in May 2022. Now, it's just a fact that the inflation rate is 2.4%. That doesn't mean that there aren't people out there doing it tough. Of course they are. But that's why we're undertaking these measures to look after people, not to go out there, talk Australia down and to try to secure political advantage from grievance.
Okay, good exchange. A few talking points in there. I'm going to jump on them from here on. Now, before we pose our fourth question, we want to talk to you about something that's happened just recently that I think you both can agree is a stain on our country. Anzac Day, people booing the welcome to country. It has started, I mean, that's an abhorrent thing to happen, but it started a broader discussion. There are people in Australia who are uncomfortable with being welcomed to country. Veterans who've said that they fought for this country, their blood is in the soil, why do they need to be welcomed to country? Mr Dutton, as Prime Minister, we know you won't stand in front of the Indigenous flag. Will you have welcome to country ceremonies? Will you have smoking ceremonies? Will you acknowledge the traditional owners at your official events?
Well, Mike, the point I've made in relation to the flag is that I don't believe that we can be the best country we can be if we're asking people to identify under different flags. No other country comparable to ours does that. I want to unite our country. I want every Australian to be equal. If you've got 65,000 years of heritage in this country, or you came here 6 days ago, as an Australian citizen, we are all equal. And that's the point that I make. You can have respect, as I do, for the Indigenous flag and the Torres Strait Islander flag, but I want our country to be one, and I think that's the best chance of reconciliation.
That is the flag.
In relation to the welcome to country, first point I'd make in relation to Anzac Day is that that is our most sacred day of the year, and it is a time to respect diggers, and it's not a time for booing any part of that ceremony.
We all agree on that.
In relation to the welcome to country otherwise, I think there is, and people have said this to me as we've moved across the country, there is a sense across the community that it's overdone. For the opening of Parliament, fair enough. It's respectful to do. But for the start of every meeting at work or the start of a football game, I think a lot of Australians think it's overdone, and it cheapens the significance of what it was meant to do. It divides the country, not dissimilar to what the Prime Minister did with the Voice.
Got to go to the Prime Minister. Prime Minister, you heard that. It cheapens the traditional owners' respect that has been shown by people who allow a welcome to country in events. What's your view?
Well, the first thing that I'd say about the Anzac Day commemorations and the way in which they were disrupted is that Peter and I agree, and I think most Australians will agree, that that was abhorrent and really an act of cowardice on a day in which we celebrate the bravery of those men and women who've worn our uniform.
Mr Dutton has just said that the welcome to country is overused and is cheapened by its overuse. You always have, at your official events, I've been to a lot of them, smoking ceremonies, welcome to country, acknowledgement of traditional owners.
Well, from my perspective, it's a matter of respect, but it's also, of course, up to the organisations that are hosting an event of whether they have a welcome to country or not. It's up to them, and people will have different views, and people are entitled to their views. But we have a great privilege, from my perspective, of sharing this continent with the oldest continuous culture on earth. And when I welcome international visitors to Parliament House, you know what? They want to see that culture. The New Zealand national anthem, as you know, is on Anzac Day, set in Maori language as well as in English, in recognition of the fullness and richness of the history of New Zealand.
But Prime Minister, do you think it's overdone, the welcome to country?
It's up to people to determine whether they have a welcome to country or not. But from my perspective, for major events, it is, of course, a sign of respect.
So you're going to continue to do it, and you're going to do it as selected events, only major events. Is that right?
I think at the opening of Parliament, it's appropriate, and I think at other very significant events of that nature, yes. But I do think that the most important thing we can do is provide practical reconciliation.
Okay.
I think the nation was aghast when the Prime Minister spent $450 million and sought to divide us over the Voice debate on heritage and on cultural grounds. I think Australians in their hearts want to see a better outcome for Indigenous Australians in terms of health outcomes and education outcomes, but that hasn't happened under this government's watch. We've had 3 years where we've seen devastating circumstances in Alice Springs, in Darwin, only in the last few days, where a man again has lost his life. And we want to see the practical reconciliation and improvements for lives of Indigenous Australians. But the Prime Minister himself can't bring himself to an honest answer to say whether it's overdone or not.
Right. So let's interrogate that. Prime Minister, we did have 18 months. You made the promise at the last election and you followed that through, and people gave you respect for having the conviction to follow through your undertaking to Indigenous peoples. The voice you told us was important for Australia, for who we are, for our standing in the world. It was a polite request from Indigenous people, and you've dropped it cold afterwards. Why?
Because I respect the outcome. We live in a democracy. It was a request made not under my government, made at Uluru in 2017 under a process that was established.
Do you still believe in it?
Under the former government. It's gone.
No, man, what's your personal view?
Well,
because
it was not successful. I'll tell you what I believe.
We know that. But
we need to find different paths to achieve reconciliation in this country.
Okay. What
and
paths?
the truth is,
what paths?
But does he still believe
that
it, though,
all
Mark, or not?
governments,
Can we get a straight answer?
That all governments have not done well enough. That's the truth.
Okay.
The Labor Party, the Liberal Party have not done well enough.
But you still,
So
you still believe, Prime Minister. I mean, people want to know this. You still believe in what the voice was trying to achieve. It's just the name that you've abandoned. You'll still try and get the objectives.
No, that process was not successful. Does that mean, though, that you shouldn't consult with Indigenous people about matters that affect them? Of course, and that's what we're doing. That's what we're doing through the Coalition of Peaks, through a range of bodies as well. The Coalition of Peaks address, for example, the National Cabinet process, and we need to do better to achieve those outcomes on education, on health, on housing. We've introduced, for example, in economic empowerment, a program to replace the old work for the dole schemes in remote communities with real jobs, with real wages, with real training.
Okay. With respect, we have heard those policies and we know them. Australia Day, should we change the date?
No.
Okay. You heard what the Prime Minister said.
Consensus.
Well, how about that?
That's impressive.
How about that? It was quick, but it's still an issue that is so divisive. We talk about it every year. How do we get beyond that annual conversation that becomes an argument?
I think one of the things that we need to do is to look at how we can bring people together.
Yeah. I'm going to give you about 20 seconds on this, PM.
Sorry, and just part of my experience of Australia Day is that there is acknowledgement of the fullness and richness of our 65,000 years of history, but there's also acknowledgement of what happened with settlement, celebrating the 26th of January when the first fleet arrived, and the migrants who've come to make Australia their home. We have three parts of that history, and we should celebrate all of it.
Yep, I think we can all agree with that. But Mr. Dutton?
Well, Mark, there are millions of people who have come to our country from all parts of the world. We've been very fortunate that that's been the case. And Australia Day has significance for them and for their forebears because that was the day on which they became an Australian citizen, on the date that they signed up to the best country in the world. So I think we need to respect it. I also think, frankly, in our schools, we need to stop the teaching of some of the curriculum that says that our children should be ashamed of being Australian effectively. We've made mistakes in our history. There's no question about that. But we can't live with that shame forever. We need to accept that mistakes were made and we need to make sure that we celebrate our national day as most other countries do because,
this is
again,
the problem.
we need to defend what we have in this country and what people have fought to
We
defend.
are going to move on, but I can feel the frustration coming through the cameras from the lounge rooms of Australia. This is it, the black armband view of Australian history. We argued about that endlessly during the Howard years. We're still arguing about it. I think that's the point that we need to get beyond this. Anyway, we're going on to defence. The world is changing before our eyes with war in Ukraine and the Middle East. You're both promising to spend more on the military. Prime Minister, you've made some comments subsequent to the opposition leader's announcement last week. But we still rely on the US principally for our protection. There's a guy called Donald Trump. You know, this is like Charles and Diana, this election campaign. There's somebody else in this relationship. His name's Trump. Can we trust Donald Trump to be our protector, Mr. Albanese?
Well, the relationship that I've had with the President is to have two discussions, and he stuck to the agreements that we made, that he would give great consideration in his words. We agreed on those words. So I start, I think, with people on 100% trust. But he has different views, different values.
Yes.
I support free and fair trade. He doesn't. He thinks tariffs are the way forward for the United States.
As a security partner, is a question, though. Can we trust Donald Trump to have our back on security?
Yes, and the US system, of course, is very important. When I went to the United States for the official visit, I met with over 100 Congress people and senators across Democrat, Republican. There's universal support for the relationship with Australia, and I think that gives us confidence is that it's in the United States' interest as well as in Australia's interest for that defence security relationship
there is a
to
point
be
there
in place.
that you haven't heard from Donald Trump, though. We know that you've attempted to get a meeting with him. You're in caretaker now. Mr Dutton, can we trust Donald Trump to have our back?
We can trust whoever's in the Oval Office, Mark, and we respect the views of the American people. They've elected a president. I've been very fortunate to work closely with the Obama administration, with Trump, Mark I, with the Biden administration. And I have found, even though we might have political differences, the overwhelming sense, as the Prime Minister points out, from Republicans and Democrats on the Hill and the Senate, in the West Wing, regardless of administrations, there is a strong support for the alliance. We've stood shoulder to shoulder with the Americans for 100 years. They came to our aid in the Battle of the Coral Sea, and we live in an uncertain period. Anthony describes it as the most precarious period since the Second World War. That's why we've announced $21 billion extra of funding into defence over the next 5 years to protect us and defend us and maintain peace in the region.
Yeah.
And we have to rely on the United States, as they do on us, for parts of the relationship and with our other Five Eyes partners as well.
OK, you both trust Donald Trump. Just quickly, you got his number? You texting?
No, I'm not sure that he has a mobile phone, the US president. Or Joe Biden. It's not the way it works.
Oh, really?
When you have with any global leader.
That's the way it works with you, though, surely. You text people all the time.
We text each other, we do. But global leaders, you set up, there's people taking notes from either side. It's not something that's a casual relationship. It's at a very different level.
We're not good enough to have Trump's mobile number, or he doesn't have one?
I don't know, but I know that.
Do you have Keir Starmer's number?
When we have discussions, what we do is we have note takers on both sides.
Yeah.
We have them in secure rooms.
Yeah.
You don't have discussions with global leaders.
I understand. Over the phone. Well, Prime Minister, I'm aware of the protocols, and they are there. Yeah. But I'm sure that on your phone there are lots of text messages from world leaders that are off-piste. Mr Dutton?
I think the answer was no there, Mark. I think that was the straight answer.
Would you get
didn't get it?
Will he give it to you, his number?
As I say, we worked with both Republican and Democrat administrations. We were able to negotiate the outcome on AUKUS, the nuclear submarine deal, with both the United States and the United Kingdom. A Democrat administration in the US.
We're talking about Mr Trump. He's elusive. He's an elusive character to get hold of and to talk to. We know that all world leaders are lining up trying to speak to this guy.
Just on that point, though, Mark, I mean, in the first Trump administration, we had Ambassador Hockey on the ground. We had the ability to reach into the administration and not just the president, but people of influence around the president to get the best possible outcome for our country.
Many countries
has none of that connection whatsoever.
But many countries did, and there have been no exemptions this time. I mean, we've done no worse than anybody else. In fact, we've done better.
We've done better. No country has done better than Australia. The truth is that this is a different administration with a different president and a very clear agenda.
Different's a very interesting word.
Well, he says very clearly that tariffs he sees as a revenue gain for the United States. I see it as an act of economic self-harm, one that will increase inflation, increase unemployment in the United States. And I do see that there will be a reassessment of where it's going. And we've seen that with the changes in position that the United States has announced on a day-to-day basis.
He certainly made many changes. We started talking about defence in this section. Simple question. Which country poses the biggest threat to Australia's security, Mr Dutton?
If you were to believe the intelligence that I received as Defence Minister and as the Leader of the Opposition, and no doubt that the Prime Minister receives as well, the biggest concern from our intelligence agencies and our Defence Agency is in relation to the Communist Party of China. And they're worried about the conflict in our region. They're worried about what that would do to impact on our trade, what it would do for our own security settings, and what we would need to do to respond to, say, a cyber attack on our country.
All right. Are you afraid of China?
Well, we know that China seeks to increase its influence in the region. We're in a constant...
Should we be worried about China, though? Does China pose the biggest risk to our national security?
Well, China is the major power in the region which is seeking to increase its influence. But the relationship is complex as well, because China is our major trading partner. So what we have to do is to invest in our capability. That's what we've done, $57 billion in defence assets increased. But as well, invest in our relationships so that the best example of soft diplomacy, I think, is, and it has had bipartisan support, is the PNG rugby league team. There's a whole range of ways.
I don't think China plays rugby league, and that's where we are.
Exactly,
Mr. Dutton
that's the point.
Mr. Dutton well, they play ping pong. We've had ping pong diplomacy in the past. Mr. Dutton named China. You didn't.
No, I said China is
the biggest threat to Australia's
the country that seeks influence in the region to extend its influence.
Biggest threat, yes.
And that is what we are dealing with.
Threat.
Well, I'm the Prime Minister of a country, and how you deal as Prime Minister is diplomatically, and that is what we continue to do.
Okay. Now to energy. Mr. Dutton, you're promising nuclear energy in 10 years. Mr. Albanese, you're backing green energy. Why do you think your plan is best to keep the lights on, Mr. Dutton?
Well, Mark, if we have a look around the world, of the top 20 economies, Australia is the only one that doesn't have or hasn't signed up to nuclear power. It's a zero emissions technology. It reduces the cost compared to the renewables only policy of the Prime Minister by 44%. That's the independent analysis. And we know that we can keep the lights on. We can firm up the renewables in the system. We can't pretend that, as the Prime Minister has said, that your power bill is going to come down by $275 because wind and solar is free. Australians know that that's not right. The idea of having a lot of gas coming into the system and making sure that we can use that as an interim measure is a central part to our East Coast gas reservation. We then move in 2035 right out to 2050 to invest in the best technology that we've got, the same technology that we've signed up to, both parties have signed up to in relation to the nuclear submarines. That will allow us to really underpin energy security for the next century. And energy is the economy. And we need to take tough decisions to make sure that we can keep the lights on, we can bring power prices down, and that's exactly what we do.
All right. So you've heard that, Prime Minister, but I want to talk, and we will talk about nuclear, but I want to talk about your plan. If renewable energy is the cheapest form of power, why are taxpayers subsidising it in the multiples of billions of dollars?
Well, the truth is that under the former government, 24 out of 28 coal-fired power stations announced their closure. What we need, so we were way behind. Nothing was happening in terms of the investment that was needed. Now, with renewables, there's been already enough projects approved to power 10 million homes. We think the future is renewables, backed by gas, backed by hydro, backed by batteries. And for the same reason that it makes economic sense for listeners at home to put solar panels on their roof, and will subsidise batteries because it will make a difference, not just for them, but importantly as well, take pressure off the grid and benefit everyone through that measure. On gas, gas was $34 on the day of the last election. Today it is $13. That is the measure that we've put in place. We put in place those caps on gas and coal that have made an enormous difference.
Would you be happy, Mr. Dutton, to have a nuclear power plant in your suburb?
Yeah, I would, Mark. As we know, we've got a safe technology that the Prime Minister signed up to. What Prime Minister in his or her right mind would sign up to a nuclear submarine and put our sailors onto the submarine thinking that there was a concern about safety? Now, what we've said is that we will utilise 7 existing coal-fired power stations. Why? Because when they come to an end of life, when the coal-fired power station closes, that community doesn't have jobs. And the experience in the UK, where the Labor Party's fully signed up, in the United States, where the Labor Party's fully signed up to nuclear, in Canada, where the Labor Party equivalent is fully signed up to nuclear, we know that those jobs transfer from the coal-fired power stations across to nuclear plants. It's what Apple is doing. It's what Oracle, what Microsoft is doing in terms of their data centres. They're only using those nuclear power stations.
In countries that have established infrastructure and a history of using it, and we know all that, and we have heard that.
I just make this point though, Mark, because it's an important point. What we have at the 7 coal-fired power stations now is the distribution network. So the poles and wires are already constructed, and we have the ability to generate the electricity and to distribute that electricity to households and businesses. Under the Prime Minister's plan, they have to build 28,000 kilometres of new poles and wires, which is all going to be paid for in the tens of billions of dollars by taxpayers.
Which you will defund.
The Prime Minister never talks about
which you will defund, I understand that. If it's so good, why have you not been to one of those 7 sites in the past 4 weeks? Now, I know you say you've been in the region, but it's not being at that community.
We were at Collie in Western Australia, one of the
before
sites.
the campaign.
Well, as opposition leader,
this is an election campaign.
I've been to 3 communities.
If you're proud of it, wouldn't you stand out in front of them and say, this is the answer to our energy problem?
Mark, I've been very proud of the fact that we have taken a decision which I think is in our country's best interests. I haven't taken it for crass political reasons because I think that we're going to get lots of votes. I think, frankly, a lot of Australians, as you pointed out in your opening remarks, are concentrating more on cost of living than they are in what's happening in 2035. I am proud of the fact that we have a vision for our country which goes beyond 3 years. It will set up our energy security for the next century. And if we can bring the cost of electricity and gas down, we can bring down the cost of groceries, of costs across the economy. We were at BlueScope the other day.
We've seen your BlueScope, we've seen you at all sorts of other places.
Well, not everyone's seen the BlueScope story, so we should talk about that.
Will we see you at a nuclear power plant site in the next 6 days?
Well, Mark, we've been to 3 communities.
Yes or no? Sorry, yes or no?
We've been to 3 communities already.
So that's no. Okay, I've got it.
Pete,
Prime Minister.
If Peter went to the Collie site, which I have twice, last year and then back again, what he would see is connecting up. It's going to use the same transmission lines that are currently used for the coal-fired power station.
This is a waste of money, Mr.
In 2027, he would see the batteries. The batteries which will power hundreds of thousands.
Can you be honest with the Australian
hundreds
people?
of thousands.
The 10 million homes you talked about only are powered part-time. What do people do overnight time? What about hospitals? What about cold rooms?
Right.
How does the economy run on part-time power?
Okay, you can answer his question.
Thanks. 100 that will power hundreds of thousands of homes.
For 4 hours, the batteries last.
It's being built there now. It will enable... I don't know how Peter thinks that water works. When it's not raining, people turn on the tap and the water's there. That's the same way that you can store energy. And that is what is happening. In WA, we'll be completely coal-fired power free, renewables, backed by gas, backed by batteries, and backed by hydro.
You're going to wreck this economy if you keep going with this, Prime Minister.
Well, Peter,
you will wreck the economy. And you're doing it now. And it's why families are suffering. It's why 30,000 small businesses have closed under your watch.
Peter,
the
there
largest
are more
number
small
of small businesses
today
closures in the last 12 months than any 12 months in our country's history.
I think what the Prime Minister is going to say is that there have been 30,000 closed, tens of thousands have opened.
There have never been more small businesses in Australia than there are today.
Right, we're getting off topic. I love the spirit. We're getting off topic. No.
Thank you very much, Mark. How are you going at home? Is this helping you decide? Well, after the break, the rapid-fire questions to decide the winner of the final showdown. They'll be short, they'll be sharp. You need to hear before voting. Then Spotlight, the verdict. The jury of 60 undecided voters crown a winner. We're back in 4 minutes.
Is this helping you guys come to a decision? Yes or no? Is this helping you guys? Thank God it's a 4-minute break. We all need a 4-minute break. God damn.
I can honestly say I probably haven't listened to an entire sentence throughout this whole thing.
This is so painful. Oh, wow.
Yuck.
Well, what's everyone's thoughts on the election result? What do we think is going to happen?
Yeah.
Do we still think it's better to have the worst of the 2 evils in Liberal Party, or are we hoping for a double dissolution miracle where the Governor General does some out of the blue generational type thing where she just calls another election and dissolves all of Parliament? Because that's what I'm hoping. I'm hoping for any other result at this point.
Mm. I don't know. Whatever. I mean,
I just saw a hilarious comment. Prime Minister Mike Burgess. Imagine that, the head of ASIO, Prime Minister. That's like having the CIA in charge of the country. Even though
they are in charge of the country anyway, really.
Even though they already are. It's like, just put them front and center as well.
It's like, okay, guys, we'll admit it.
Yeah, we need a miracle. We need Anthony Albanese's appointed governor to dissolve all of Parliament and just get rid of everybody, all 150. Just clean up house.
They won't do it, though. They won't do it because they know that we will clean up in the Senate if they do that. They know.
Oh,
it's like the last result.
How good would that be? That Senate would be so beautiful.
I mean, it'd be kind of feral because every man and his dog would be trying to run because it's easier, and then it would probably dilute. Like, yeah, I reckon people would sabotage
the Victoria thing that we had. How many people are running in the Senate for Victoria again? It was like 20 people, or 20 parties, or yeah. See if I can find it.
Well, the
it would be an
outcome
absolute dog's breakfast if that happened. It'd be like 100 people each state trying to get into the Senate.
I'm telling you, that's exactly what will happen. Everyone will go full retard. I'm telling you. There'll be like 10 minor parties all punching on. They'll be saying mean stuff about each other. People punching on.
Yeah, that coalition that they tried to set up this time around, no chance. Everyone's going to be bashing each other. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. 20 people or parties were running in Victoria for the Senate. So if that happens, it'd be an absolute shit show. What Roy said, you would basically need like it'd be like a Royal Rumble. Yeah, it wouldn't be UFC. It'd be a WWE Royal Rumble. But instead of 30, you'd have 30 per state or 50 per state or something. It'd be an absolute shit show.
So bad.
But even, like I said, even this time around, 20 people, 20 parties, independents running in Victoria, absolute fucking shit show. All right, we're back.
Even the fact that, okay, yeah.
Now, some short, sharp answers on some quickfire questions in tonight's Hot Take.
We'll use some images, play some audio, or discuss some key moments.
Okay, ready? First, gents, take a look at this. We were talking about the Aussie dream a bit earlier. What comes to mind when you see this, Mr. Albanese?
Marriage.
Oh, Mr. Dutton.
Retirement home.
Oh, clever. Yeah, okay. That was a bit pointed. Just a reminder, that was the house that Miss Albanese bought.
And Jodie Hayden.
And Jodie.
I know some people have erased her out of history, but I haven't.
No, of course. Do you wish you'd put it in Jodie's name?
It's in our name.
Yeah. But, might have taken the focus off you.
Okay, what about this? An icon of a TV show that's been on Labor's strategy ads. Mr. Dutton, your reaction?
Just a juvenile response from a Prime Minister who's not prepared to debate the topic.
Mr. Albanese?
Well, I'm prepared to debate the topic, and Peter was too busy yelling to hear our response, which is about it doesn't stack up economically in Australia. $600 billion.
Okay, let's go. This one, here is a dozen eggs. Mr. Dutton, do you know how much they cost?
About $4.20.
No, you might get half a dozen.
Mr. Albanese?
$7 if you can find them, because it's hard to find them at the moment.
Yeah, you're looking at, I reckon you're looking at 8+. No?
Yeah, there you go. It's the Sunny Queen 12 eggs from Woolies. They're $8.80 from Coles. They're slightly cheaper at about $8.50. Yeah, that's... I think you maybe
own
Mr.
brand.
Albanese got the advantage.
Kiralee does the shopping.
I've got to buy a dozen at a time instead of a half a dozen.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly. They've gone up a lot, though. You're right. In the last,
They sure have.
in the last few months, especially the last year. Okay, A follow-up. What 3 things will be cheaper, first of all, if you stay Prime Minister? What can go down? Because that's what everyone out there is screaming for.
Tell you what, if you're doing a TAFE course, it's zero. Childcare, because of what we're doing on childcare. And I'm trying to... And the other measures that we're putting in place to your income taxes will come down as well.
In 15 months. Mr Dutton, 3 things.
Well, electricity will come down, gas will come down, and groceries will come down.
Very quick.
There you go. Down to buy the eggs.
One, wasn't it? And what about this man? Let's have a look. Elon Musk, a billionaire around 30 times over, taken into Trump's government, now winding back just months in, Mr Albanese. What comes to mind looking at this man?
Tesla and a very rich man.
Mr Dutton?
I think evil genius.
Evil genius.
Oh, okay. Mr Dutton, have you distanced yourself, do you think, from Mr Trump's style enough?
I haven't sought to be anybody other than myself, and I believe very strongly that, based on my experience working with John Howard very closely, he's been my political mentor, and I want to make sure we manage the economy as he did. I want to keep our country safe,
Will we still
as
have
any
a
liberal
Doge?
leader would do.
We still have a Doge, just in a price going to run a Doge.
I've heard
Why
this-
have you followed so many of the policies?
Well, government
even
efficiency.
today, saying that the ABC were part of hate media.
Well, government efficiency, I mean, do you believe in that?
Look, of course we agree
Oh, of
in
course you're-
efficiency.
well,
What we
you're-
don't
you're-
agree
you're
with,
Trump light.
what we don't agree
Trump
with,
light because you want
is what
taxpayers'
your
money spent
assistant.
efficiently, as we're suggesting.
Can I finish?
Sure.
Is what your Assistant Treasurer, Luke Howarth, said, which was that you would have a Department of Government Efficiency based upon Elon Musk's model. He's your shadow Assistant Treasurer.
We've said that given you've spent $425
and you're going to sack 41,000 public servants.
We've said that given you've spent $425 billion extra, which is why people are paying more for their mortgages now, that we're going to take some of the wasteful spending that you've got in the budget. We have the
We've
highest per
saved
capita number.
$207 billion. We've improved the budget bottom line by $207 billion. We've produced 2 budget surpluses, the government of which you were a part delivered 0.
All right,
Okay.
good.
Yep.
This started off so nicely.
I know. It was so friendly.
Let's go back to it.
What comes to mind when you see this, gentlemen? Let's have a look. Mr Albanese.
Australia.
Mr Dutton?
Well, a great system, and one that we've invested in, that we believe in strongly. But at the moment, you're paying about $43 to go and see a doctor, and so it should be accompanied by the credit card that you've got to take to the doctors as well.
Do you
under
have
this
that in your
government.
pocket? You're probably thinking he's going to pull it out at some stage. You got your credit card there?
No, I haven't got it.
We want to abolish bulk billing altogether by
wanted to
having a
make-
charge.
I wanted to
by
make
having a
primary care
charge.
sustainable.
By having a charge every time people visit the doctor, it would have been no bulk billing.
No, but your charge
That
now
was
is $43.
That was what you did.
Your charge is $43.
That's what you did. We're repairing your mess.
I think you both had policies in the past, though, that you walked away from. We talked about negative gearing. You've walked away from that. And Mr Dutton's walked away from the 2014 budget, and we know all about that.
But he pretends it didn't happen.
Okay.
Okay.
We want to listen to a quick soundbite.
That my word is my bond.
Remember that, Mr Albanese? I do.
I do.
Yeah. But you broke your word.
I did.
So
I did. I changed my mind because I could not resile from the need to do something to help people because of cost of living pressures.
Sure.
So what I did was I fronted up.
Yeah.
I went along to the National Press Club. I didn't pretend that we hadn't changed our position.
No.
I went along, I argued the case, and guess what? The coalition voted for it as well.
We gave you snaps of that. And but you remember the interview? I do.
Yeah.
I put those arguments to you at that time, and I said, why won't you change this? Because all those things you just articulated were real then, and they're real now. And you said, because my word is my bond.
Except, Mark, that what occurred with global inflation, where inflation hit, here it peaked at 7.8. Overseas, it peaked.
Things got worse, is your argument,
It peaked
is
in
it?
double digits. It peaked in double digits.
Yeah.
And I couldn't, in all conscience, on the 1st of July, get $9,000 for all of us and a whole lot of people who are watching at home
But I
not
put
get a
this to you
single
at
dollar.
that time. I put that to you at that time. Mr Dutton, is your word your bond?
Yes, it is. And if you're talking about the stage 3 tax cuts, don't forget it's stage 3 because stage 1 and stage 2 tax cuts were introduced by a coalition government, and we supported stage 3 tax cuts. So The whole idea was to address bracket creep that you spoke of before. Under this government, people are paying $3,500 extra in tax over the course of the last 3 years.
But you voted for the change. So not only did we change our position, but it went through the parliament unanimously.
You changed it.
Okay, we're talking about your word being your bond. On that point, we want you to listen to something else, Mr Dutton.
Well, I've apologised for the decision that we took in relation to work from home.
How did you get that policy so wrong?
We said in relation to public servants in Canberra that we wanted to go back to something like what it was before COVID, which was about 60% of people at work. Still flexibility for a lot of people, and believe very strongly in flexibility in work arrangements. It's down to 20% in Canberra. We have, on a per capita basis, the highest number of public servants in the world, and the government has increased the number of public servants threefold. The point I was making is that if Australians are out there working their guts out at the moment, an extra job or a second job, they're paying taxes, they expect their money to be spent efficiently. What the Prime Minister did, as he's done with a number of other issues, is twisted and contorted into something that it wasn't. And the point I make was that, yes, the Prime Minister scared particularly women and others into believing that we were doing something that we weren't, and I apologise for that.
Okay, well, we know the conditions in the public sector become a template for the private sector, though, don't we?
But you said when you announced the policy that people could just job share. That's what you said. And since the backflip, a number of your people, senior people, have said that they still support the policy. It was just the wrong time. The truth is that this attack on public servants would then create a precedent for the private sector, which is why people were so concerned that it doesn't understand what modern families do. Just like sacking 41,000 public servants, you had 54,000 consultants at various times during your period in office being paid a lot more than public servants, and you had robo-debt, and you had veterans waiting.
Right, we're getting back into the weeds now, and we could
support.
talk about this all night. And I wish we could, frankly, because I think this is really helpful. However, time is closing on us. So your closing statements, gentlemen. I've been out there on the streets with you for the past 4 weeks. I've got to tell, I'm sorry, I'm going to be out there next week with you as well. So I know how hard you're working. The one thing people are saying to me, and I'm sure they're saying to you, is where's the inspiration? Where's the hope? Give me some hope. Give me something to look forward to. Your closing statements, 1 minute. Mr Dutton, you're going first. Give the people some hope.
Well, Mark, firstly, thank you to you and Nat, and to Anthony as well. I believe we live in the greatest country in the world. I know that many Australians are really doing it tough at the moment, and I don't believe Australians can afford 3 more years of increased costs of everything. I want to make sure we can deliver support immediately through the 25 cent a litre cut in fuel tax, the $1,200 tax rebate, and I want to make sure that we can transform our energy market, get more gas into the system, bring the wholesale price of gas down by 23%. If we do that, we can bring down the costs across the economy. We can bring inflation down through good economic management, and that's exactly what is required in our country right now. If we make the right decisions now, we can protect our generation and future generations and make our country and our communities safer. And that's exactly what I'm dedicated to doing. So if people vote for that Liberal and National candidate at this election, we can get our country back on track, and we can make sure that we can invest into families, help grow our economy, reduce interest rates, and help Australians get through what has been a terrible period.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr Albanese. People are crying out for hope and inspiration. Your 1 minute.
Well, I'm optimistic about Australia's future, and what gives me hope is the resilience, the courage, the optimism of the Australian people. We are the greatest country on the planet, and we're driven by our people as well as, of course, the natural assets that we enjoy. And I want to back our people through skills and training. That's why we're investing in every school by giving a better and fairer schools funding. That's why we're investing in early childhood education. That's why we're investing in free TAFE, to give people that opportunity to be the best that they can. That's why we're working so hard with the Australian people to bring down inflation. If we get it right, the future is so bright for us, because we live in the fastest growing region of the world in human history, and our people are our greatest asset, including our multiculturalism, of course, gives us those direct links to the economies of Asia.
Gentlemen, thank you very much for entering into the spirit of the debate tonight. We've covered a lot of ground. 6 days to go. Good luck to both of you. Let the best man win. Nat?
Well, Australia, now it is time to decide. Who do you think won the final showdown? And what did our jury of undecided voters from all walks of life watching here inside 7's Election HQ think of the two contenders? Did Anthony Albanese convince you he's worth another 3 years in the top job? Or did Peter Dutton shake off his campaign cobwebs and reveal something new to convince you in the final days it's his turn to become Prime Minister of Australia? They've both put everything on the line tonight. Was it enough? Michael Usher, I'm excited to see where this goes. It's over to you for the verdict.
Let's find out. Natalie, thank you very much and welcome to a very special edition of Spotlight the Verdict. As we go to air, we have a live audience. You saw them just a second ago of 60 undecided viewers who've been watching the final showdown live from our 7 News Election Central studio. They are the jury and they are, believe me, ready to judge. Tonight, they'll vote and decide who wins this fourth and very final debate. We have a team of independent number crunchers from Roy Morgan, experts in this work, who've been monitoring the jury's reaction to every single second of the debate to help all of us understand who really won. They're going to be guided by Monique Wright, who will cross to, g'day Monique, just in a moment, to reveal how tonight's scoring is going to work. It's been quite technical. We also have our team of expert insiders joining me here on the desk. Let me introduce them. Andrew Carswell, Liberal insider and columnist for The Nightly. He was a primary advisor to Australia's 30th Prime Minister, Scott Morrison. Kayla Manane is a Labor insider. She served as the New South Wales Party's first and only female General Secretary. She knows a lot about campaigns and how to manage them. She's relieved to not be doing it tonight, and she's here to give us her advice. And Ben Harvey, he's a Supremo, the chief reporter for the West Australian, always clear in his views. And, of course, the country's most respected political editor. You just saw him in action then. We're giving him about 30 seconds to sit down and catch a breath. Mike Riley will join us in a minute. Thank you all so much for your company tonight. We're going to get some expert analysis soon, but
all right, we don't care. Let's talk about how we can try to fix this, Millie. What do you want to tell everyone with regards to our preferences? Because everyone is a bit confused.
Just the way you said that, it's like that meme where it's like, we don't care. Okay, look, firstly, I think Dutton won that, but only because he's gotten a little bit better at public speaking, not because he's inspiring whatsoever. It's just not a thing. And my favourite part of that whole debate was, my word is my bond, but you broke your word. Yes, I did. So, like, if that doesn't perfectly encapsulate, like, what we're going through right now, I don't know what does. Look, I don't know. Anthony and I have both been bashing our heads against the wall while we try to, I guess, explain how to vote card strategy in a way that makes sense to people. It's like, no matter what we say, we can't make everyone happy. So it's like, whatever, we'll just do what we think is right, which is basically like, yeah, we've just stuck to our guns with it and gone, you know what? We know we're right. After the election, if Labor wins, everybody will see that we're right and let the chips fall as they may. But look, so basically, like, we've put Dutton last in his seat because it's a pretty marginal seat. And I want to like the guy. I do. I think he's, like, really innocent in a way, like, in terms of, like, it's adorable that he's trying real leadership for the first time. It's like watching a child ride a bike, you know what I mean? So, like, in a sense, it's like, you know, good on him. Oh, he's taken off the training wheels. He's going. He's still going to fall down the ledge a little bit further down the track. So, I don't know. I don't really want to see him running the country on that premise. He's not ready, you know what I mean? It's like, it's just, or rather, he just doesn't have it in him naturally. And I can just tell he's just going to ruin it at some point by just, like, throwing us under the bus, probably with some form of international conflict or aid solution or whatever it is. So, look, we want Dutton out of his seat. It'd be nice if they just full on replace the leader of the Liberal Party, but still the Liberal National Party form government. That's my ideal scenario, personally.
All right, so question. So good job, but definitely not putting Liberal National Party at number 2? Why is the Liberal National Party number 2 in so many of the seats? Because everyone's throwing the freaking, what's the saying? The freaking
Yeah, I
bathwater
mean,
thing.
like, we've
Everyone's just
repeated.
but the dummy about that.
Yeah, like, we've literally repeated ourselves so many times with this. It's just a matter of the fact that everybody in our threads is always saying to us that they don't want Labor to win. Well, we've made a decision in seats where literally no one else can win to put them number 2 just to enhance their chances of forming government. Unless they're Liberals that we hate, that have like directly contributed to the agendas that we've seen playing out, then yeah, Liberal National is number 2 because they don't get any money from it. And a right-wing, independent, freedom-friendly minor party always gets the number 1. So that's where the funding goes. Like, I've said it so many times, you know, and it's very clear to me that, you know, and I get that it's complicated, but people don't understand the 2-party preferred mandatory preferential voting system, and it shows. But the first thing that I do personally, if I don't understand something, is I Google it. I don't have a knee-jerk reaction and then lose it in the comments without at least trying to resolve what it means myself. And so, like, we've just been dealing with a lot of knee-jerk reactions. I will say, like, the majority of people understand why we've designed the cards that way, but the ones that don't have also been very loud. And it's just as simple as Labor and the Greens and the Teals and whoever always preference each other number 2. Why do they do that? Because as the process of elimination trickles down, they make sure the next best option in a winnable position can win the seat. And that's literally all we've done. And if you think that you're going to change the major party duopoly in one election cycle, it is completely delusional. Like, I cannot stress enough how much, like, the majority of Australia still just votes Labor and Liberal. And until we literally tap them on the shoulder and say, hey, can you not, en masse, it's not going to change overnight. And this is probably the last election where we have a chance to make a meaningful impact, like across the board with our minor parties and independents. So it's looking pretty dire hereafter. And I want the opportunity for them to change those funding laws that they put in. And if enough minor parties and independents get in, they could have the power to put the pressure on to overturn that legislation, which is just going to ruin every other election cycle.
All right, so there's people like this person here that goes, it's not that we don't understand the system, don't be so patronizing, we just don't agree with you. What's your response to that? Because my response to that is that we're not addressing you or people that already know or understand the fundamentals, or people that have watched Topher Field's Marbles video, or people that have participated in the discourse over the last few years. Even I'm still just learning the ropes now. This was a big learning curve for me. I actually took the How to Vote card for Barrera so I could fill out the Senate ballot for myself a couple of days ago, because I had no freaking idea what the hell I was doing before the last couple of years. So this tool in of itself was very helpful for me, because at least gave me a guideline of what to do and how to follow these stupid ballots, because you got like 15, 20 different options. Now, in saying that, probably at least 50-60% of the country are still going to vote Liberal Labor anyway come May 3rd. These are the people that we need to wake up. And one more thing on the whole resetting everyone's mindset. I did something really dark and really kind of, strange in terms of the query that I put into AI ChatGPT the other day. I go, how many election cycles is it going to take for everyone in the House of Representatives to die? It told me 11. So this is going to take a while, guys. Now, I'm not wishing that all of them die, but I want a big cleanup of this whole system. And that's how sinister and that's how clean I want the scrub to be. I want the whole place to be cleaned out, and we can have a new rebirth, a bloody phoenix coming out of the ashes where there's new young blood in there. It's going to take a while, unfortunately. We're not going to get it done in a week.
And you know what? Like, to answer your question, what do I think of that comment? I'm not being patronizing. Like, if you understand what it is we've put forward and you disagree, Fine. But the entitlement to monopolize a comment section, for example, ranting that you disagree, even if you objectively understand the logic, shows a degree of entitlement. And I say that because 99.9% of people, even in this audience included, haven't gone out of their way to create resources to help people vote, right? Like, we put a shitload of work into helping people, into being the most reliable source of political information and advocacy, at least on this side of politics anyway, right? There's so much work that goes into it. And for people to come in and try and shit all over what we're doing just because they disagree with one element of strategy when they know that we're actually right, that's what I have a problem with. I think it's rude. And I think that the entitlement that you would dismiss people trying to do the right thing just so that you can rant and rave about your own interests while you're potentially sitting on the couch eating Cheetos, that's what I have an issue with, right? Like, we're literally out here doing our best trying to help people get an outcome. And I guarantee if Labor wins after the election, we're going to be hearing about it non-stop. There will be whinging for days about the fact that they won, or there was no political solution, or it's rigged, or it's that, or people just didn't use their preferences properly. Like, it's that simple. So, look, I don't have a whole lot of patience. It depends on the tone that people come, to the table with a question. And it's the accusatory nature of some of the things that have been said, like acting like we're LNP sellouts or shills or something. Like, we've said multiple times that both of them can crash and burn for all we care.
No. I'm not defensive about this. The fact that people are critical about it, I embrace it. Please be critical, because it just means that you're able to inform other people about what you know, because you clearly know, which is good, because not many people know, and we need to snap people out of this shit. And I saw a comment, there's not gonna be any young blood in the next 11 cycles. My God, we're gonna be goddamn 70, 75 by then. We're not even gonna be young blood. We're gonna be 6 foot under anyway. So, that's the reality that we have to deal with. We're gonna have to try to snap as many people out of it to get the best possible outcome in the next 5.5 days. We've got to try to put a whole bunch of Freedom Party senators, hopefully in the Senate, to at least block legislation and then get the best possible outcome in the lower house. The lower house is not as important as the Senate. We've all seen over the last couple of years with the live streams that we've been doing. The Senate is where these pieces of legislation become law and become acts, and then we have to deal with the consequences of them, whether it be the hate speech legislation, whether it be the misinformation bill attempt that we campaigned so heavily against. What else? The social media minimum age bill, the digital ID bill was passed early last year. All of these things, they're consequential in the Senate. So don't worry too much about where things fall in the House of Representatives. It's the Senate that is so vitally critical for us to try to get the best possible outcome this election. And then we'll see what happens after this week. And then we'll have to touch base again the next federal election. We've got New South Wales coming up, in 2 years? You've got Victoria the year next year. You've got anti-vilification laws that have passed in Victoria. You've got hate speech amendments that have passed in New South Wales. These are things that we're going to have to fight in the upper houses of these parliaments. So don't worry too much about where the lower house candidates sit. We want to get the best outcome in the Senate so we can try to stop the uni party, having bipartisan agreements on legislation that are just going to stuff us over. But yeah, I mean, take it for what it is. It's the best possible outcome that we thought. Millie, for all of the flaws that we both have, she's actually gotten incredible outcomes in past past elections for candidates. Some of the candidates that don't want to admit that Millie had a hand in helping them get elected. She has the experience, so that's why she played a big role in this resource. But take it for what it is. If you want to go the Ricardo Bossy route where you complain about the options and say, nah, have a barbecue instead, but then at the bottom of your poster that says have a barbecue instead, support Australia One or whatever it is, how can we boycott the ballot and complain about the uni party, but then you want us to go to the ballot and support you? You know, we got to be a little bit smart and, you know, a bit more realistic about the consequences of all these situations.
And literally, that's where my frustration comes from. It's like, if people stopped from their knee-jerk reaction, sat and thought about it, and thought about who it is they're addressing. Like, we literally go above and beyond to make sure everyone's informed about all of these things. We're not just talking out of our asses. Like,
yeah,
the
but
intention...
Millie, this is not about us, okay? We're trying to inform people. We're empowering people. We've put the tools out. Hopefully, you guys are as informed as possible. Make the decision yourself. If you appreciate the resource and you want to use it, great. If you don't want to use it, or if you're critical of the decisions, that's fine as well. Just inform as many people as possible, because that's what we want. We want as many people informed about getting the best outcome, and where you want to focus your attention is the Senate. I don't think it's as bad as that. I don't think we should take it personal, honestly.
But we're not taking it personally. It's literally just about the amount of complaining. Like, your energy is currency, and people would rather sometimes complain about something rather than just getting on with it. And it's like, this election isn't going to help itself.
But let them complain. You know, if they want to complain, it is what it is. You know, you can't force them to change their mind. I just want to put the resource out there. We did our best. I think, you know, compared to other resources that are out there for cramming the homework within 6 days, we did our best. And again, if you appreciate the resource, use it. I'll pull it up here. If you're critical of it, I actually appreciate criticism more than the compliments. When I see the compliments, I'm sort of like, when I see the hate comments, I'm like, oh, what have we got here?
Yeah, well, it seems we fluctuate on our opinion between cycles. What I'm saying is that it's really hard work to get something like this off the ground.
But this is the resource here, guys. So it's HTV, how to vote. So htv.australiansversusagenda.com.au. It's quite simple. I've made it foolproof. You click on this link here, the Find Your Electorate. It's just the official AEC electorate. If you don't know what it is, just put your details in and it'll aggregate it for you. And then once you find it, you just scroll through here. Hopefully this comes up. I think it might be a bit delayed, but there's 150 electorates. All you got to do is find yours. So my one was Barara. Here, Barara. Click view and download. And then there's your lower house ballot. There's your Senate ballot. And yeah, I mean, take it for what it is. I mean, let's have a look. So we got, where is it? Pauline Hanson's One Nation First. So we've put friendlies with the best possible chance, number 1. Number 2, Trumpet of Patriots. Number 3, an independent. Number 4, another independent. Number 5, the Fusion Party. Number 6, Greens. Number 7, Labor. Number 8, Liberal. Now, the reason why Julian Lee says number 8, even though he has like $3% odds of winning his seat, like he's got about half a dozen to a dozen volunteers at the polling booth just near my house at a time, is because he's almost guaranteed to win. The reason why I put him A is because I wanted to make a statement to say, hey, you've come out and said that you want to put what I think it was $32.5 million towards Jewish causes. You want to invest $8 million in this community center in the Barara electorate. I mean, what are you doing here? Like, you're just splashing away multiple tens of millions of dollars to Jewish community groups, Jewish community centers. And what about the people that are actually, you know, homeless on the bridge in my area? What are you going to do to help them? Your office is literally just down the road. I emailed the New South Wales Member of Parliament the other day saying, hey, thanks for the email saying, hey, this is my speech from Parliament, but what are you doing to help your community? You know, this was a personal decision for me. And this is what we've done. We've channeled all of the grievances that we've had over the last couple of years in these decisions, and we've also tried to be strategic with a lot of them as well. If you want to follow the guide, follow it. If you want to make some variations, that's even better as well, because that means you're taking the power into your own hands. And if you just straight out hate it, awesome. Inform other people so they know how to make decisions, just like you want to make your own decision as well, because that's what we want. We want to make this 50-60% uni party vote get lower and lower and lower each election cycle that comes. But yeah, trust me, Liberal Party hates us. Liberal Party freaking hates us.
They literally do. And a second preference is not a primary vote. That's all that matters. And as long as we fill it out in the Senate to represent everyone's own interests, then we're fine. And yeah, like Anthony said, it's better if you take your preference into your own hands and you look at it and you actually think about who you want to number and why. That's what we want. That's why we put the resources together. So it's all done with good intentions.
But yeah, I mean, we've had 4 debates, but all 4 have been so uninspiring. The one thing that I think that was interesting is that at each debate, they all got asked, where's the inspiration? And none of them showed anything to inspire the viewers. And I mean, we'll see what happens. We'll do a broadcast on election day to see what happens. I'm hoping that it's a hung parliament where it gets drawn out for like 2-3 weeks, like the 2010 election. And yeah, maybe we get a miracle our way where parliament is completely dissolved because there's what is it called? There's a disagreement with where the numbers are going to go. So there has to be a dissolution. That's the miracle that we're hoping for, but I don't think it's ever happened in Australian history. But, you know, there's always room for a first. Far out, Devastator. What the hell, man? Middle Cove Motors, can't thank you enough. Aussie versus the agenda. Thank you, Middle Cove Motors. Dean Swift, you guys are smashing it. Keep up the good work. Thank you, Dean. Share the resources out. I busted my ass coding this thing, and Millie busted her ass putting the preferences in the best possible position. So please just share it. If you hate it, but you're informed, just share the resource so we can get as many people to view it as well. And full transparency, we've had about 3,000 people download the cards in the last 3 days. So we've had about 1,000 a day hit rate so far, which is awesome. So please share it out. Let's try to get it to maybe 10,000 downloads or more by the end of next week. But yeah, thank you so much. Devastator. Now I've got to bloody read these, and these are going to sit here for ages. No criticism to offer at the moment. Great work, Tony. Keep it up. Thank you so much, Devastator, and thank you to Millie as well. She did a lot of the heavy lifting as well with those Excel spreadsheets. And what was the other one? Same one, same one. Thank you so much, Devastator. That's greatly appreciated. Anyone else have any comments as well?
Someone said Millie hates white nationalists. Why should we trust her? Because I have the balls to tell you that I hate white nationalists. That's why. That's why. To your faces. No, we have aligning interests besides the contempt for mixed race people. That's the truth. Whatever your stance is.
This is my stance, right? If you've followed me personally over the last 4 or 5 years, or if you're a new person to the channels, this is what I want you to know, okay? You would have to be very, very misinformed to believe that I would not stand up for you, whether you're on the left, the right, whether you're part of the National Socialist Network, or whether you're a complete NPC, that I won't stand up for you for someone that gets screwed by the government. The minute that the government, the minute that the New South Wales police, the minute that the courts decided to put a custodial sentence on my head and throw me in jail for breaching COVID restrictions, forced me to plead guilty because my appeal was given a Parker warning in response, where if I went through with that appeal and I said, hey, I want to contest the 3-month sentence that I was offered, and it was possibly going to stretch out to an 8-month sentence, If you think that I'm not going to stand up for you, you're very, very misinformed. I'll stand up for anyone that the government tries to push around. Now, one thing that I thought was great about the booing at the Anzac Day ceremony the other day with regards to the welcome to country, this was my point that I made to Millie, and I want to make this point as well. It had to be someone like Jacob from NSN. It had to be someone as polarizing as him to be able to get the discussion going. If it was someone different that wasn't him, it wouldn't have made the impact where it's actually put in front of the Prime Minister, where it's put in front of Peter Dutton and forced their hand into holding press conferences and responding to questions about the debate that he's put in front of everyone's eyes now. There is thousands of comments on social media about this topic, and we have to thank him for getting the ball rolling on it. It had to be someone as polarizing as him. The only reason that this has lasted, 3 days almost now, is because of him. That's the way that I see it. And the fact that the Victorian government tried to see if they could prosecute him on the back of the hate speech amendments that they just passed a couple of weeks ago. He's right on every level. Jacob is right on every level. It had to be him. It had to be someone polarizing, and it had to be done at an event where everyone was going to talk about it. And the fact that they tried to prosecute him for it, it just proves us all right. We are all galvanized by what he did.
Yeah, so may not like what people's views are, but we will defend their right to say it. That's as simple as it is. So, and it is a blessing in a way that it was such a polarizing character, because it exposed the literal desperation to try and prosecute people for something that is not a hate crime. Booing is not a hate crime. Booing's not a hate crime. Our hate crime legislation is really good, and they don't use it anyway, right? It's really good. It protects people if they actually used it when they should be using it. But they don't, and now they want to criminalize booing, and that's messed up. So regardless of, what I think of anyone personally, I'll always defend people's right to say what they want to say without being criminalized for it. It's just basic free speech.
But yeah, that's where I stand on it. I don't care who it is, what the circumstances are. If the government tries to prosecute you when it comes to freedom of movement, when it comes to freedom to protest, when it comes to freedom of speech, I will defend you. I don't care what your ideology is, what you identify, what your politics is. I'm 100% going to defend you to the death. And it doesn't even have to be reciprocated, because that's where I stand on it. And that's where the chips fall for me. So hopefully that resonates with you, and hopefully we can try to get more people to wake up to this bullshit, and we'll just see what happens. At the end of the day, we all got to live our lives as well and try to, not get so sucked up in this rabbit hole where it just consumes us. Because, after the 6 days, I took a 7-day break, and then we had 6 days of trying to bust our ass getting this tool out. And now, we're going to chill out a little bit, and then things are going to ramp up probably from Thursday onwards coming to the election. So bit of a dog's breakfast. Let's try to balance shit out. Let's try to live our lives as well and not get so overly consumed by this shit, because, it's unhealthy. And that's what they want. They want to make you unhealthy. They want to deprive you of your health and your mental health to the point where you just give in to their bullshit. Don't let that happen. But yeah, everyone, please share the tool out. I'd really greatly appreciate it. Any final words?
No, just, share the tool. And if you don't like something, change it. It's your vote. It's your ballot. And that's where my frustration came from, It's like, if you don't like something, take it into your own hand and do it. We're doers over here. We don't sit around and complain about something. We're diabolical. We will do something, whether it's petty, whether it's productive, whatever it is, we're doing something if there's something we don't like. That's who we are as people. And we want people to feel empowered again and literally get Australia back to what it's supposed to be. That's what we need. Everybody up and moving and passionate. So, yeah, that's about it.
Awesome. Everyone, please share the tool out. Let me see if I can pull up the link, but I'll post it anyway. I'll post it in the comments of YouTube, and I'll post it in the comments of on on X as well. So there's the link there, htv.australiansversusagenda.com.au. All right, good night, everyone. Shit debate, but are we surprised? Let's see what happens on Saturday. Take care, everybody.
Bye.
And thank you so much, Devastator. So
yeah,
awesome.
thank you,
so much.
Devastator. Legend.